go. Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you tonight, Anthony?
Good, thank you. Good evening, everybody,
Good
wherever
evening.
you are in the world. I know that some people are watching in Europe and in Asia. It's very early in Asia and very late in Europe, and quite lovely in the late afternoon in Victoria. And
Yeah.
this is still light in
Yes,
Miami. Right? Yeah.
yes, it's still light. It's been beautifully hot here.
Well,
I'm
isn't that
afraid to get records delivered because I think they're going to melt on the doorstep.
I've not had a record delivered in quite some time. They were
Yeah.
coming thick and fast, and Jam was like, "How many records are coming?" I said, "I think it's going to slow down soon," and they have, which is interesting. We can talk about that in a little while. Hey,
Okay.
Joey. Joey says, "Hi, everybody. Hope everybody is well." Hi, Joey. How are you? Hope everybody is well.
Hi, Joey.
Okay, it's pretty quiet so far. We usually have quite a few questions, but sometimes it gets a little slow. Here's Alan. Good evening,
Good
music.
evening.
Good evening to you too, Alan. Nice to see you. Thanks for commenting. So, guys, it's great to see everybody or hear everybody. As always, please comment lots and ask lots of questions. We love that.
Yes.
Talking of that. Hi, team. Andrew from Oz. Great to see you, Andrew.
Andrew.
And lunchtime in Canberra, I think. Excuse me. Don't be shy. Jump on and show some records. We've got Jack, who's very brave, and Armin's been brave a couple of times, and I think Ray came on, but not many have come on. And on some of these other streams, I was on Rachel's show yesterday promoting our show and the giveaway, and there's people like dying to jump on and talk about Trump and talk about religion and start yelling about people getting free records. It's hilarious. But here we have these people are very reserved and very pleasant. But please don't be shy. Jump on it, even if you're just sitting there and hanging out for a while. We promise it'll be a friendly place to be, and show some records or not. Just hang out. Jack,
I think Joey's going to come up one day.
I hope so. That photograph. He's so handsome. Why wouldn't he come up?
I know.
Jack, evening from Jack and Richard. Hello, everyone. Hi, Richard. It's wonderful to see you.
Hi, Richard.
Here's a question for you. Why don't you read it, Scott?
Question. What's wrong with these Abbey Road half-speed masters? Yeah, most people are not crazy about them. They are all digital half-speed masters. I have had success with a few of them, but on the whole, they don't really hold up to the best of the original pressings. Or
who's mastering them?
Miles Showell.
Miles Showell. Well, he said some interesting stuff. Some of the stuff has been very well received.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't rule everything out.
No. Good evening, Carl. How are you?
Well, hello, Anthony and Scott. Hi there. Doing pretty
Hi,
good.
Carl.
I've already had my orders from Scott. Make sure you let Carl speak longer tonight, which I already had on the plans anyway, but I appreciate Scott reminding me. But we've got lots for Carl to talk about tonight. Carl is always so kind, and last week with two guests, it got a little bit lengthy, but tonight Carl's going to talk about a couple of things that I think you're going to find very interesting.
Excellent.
So anyway, sorry, back to Andrew says, you can't see that. Andrew says, hi, Carl. So let's go back to Andrew's question. Sorry, Scott, you were talking. Miles Showell does the mastering?
Yes. And it's always, to my knowledge, it's always from digital file, and it's half-speed mastered, which, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but the way they come out is a little clinical sounding in many cases, I think. But it is a case-by-case basis. I have some, the Roxy Music ones are pretty good. I don't think he's doing any classical, but.
Well, I think he did. I think Andrew mentioned he did the Benjamin Britten War Requiem, which is a very interesting and great piece. In fact, my mentor, one of my conducting teachers, Meredith Davis, gave the world premiere of that piece, and I actually played it. I played it a couple of times. I played in the chamber orchestra part, which is very difficult, and the regular orchestra. and it's a magnificent piece of music. But the original Decca is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good, and it's kind of plentiful because people kind of go, like I took the Victoria Symphony did it with 4 double basses, which is ridiculous. It's a massive orchestra, and I took
Right.
Jan, and Jan was like, "Yeah, it's okay. It's not squeaky gate music, but it's a little challenging." But anyway, there's a new half-speed remaster. I think Andrew
From what label though?
on Decca, original Decca.
Oh, it's
So
the
he did-
Decca. Oh,
Yeah, the Decca. So the Decca is better. It's an amazing. It's a famous Decca. So
yeah. ORG did it too, right?
Yeah.
Oh no,
No,
they didn't.
no.
No, that
But
was
I
not.
will tell you, I did this video about digital recordings and classical digital recordings. Actually, not just classical, jazz and some pop as well. And like I said, it's got, I think, 5,000 views already. You get 6,000. And let me just get James on.
That's great. Good numbers.
Hi, James. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you all? Nice to see
Lovely to
you.
see you.
Hi,
I think
James.
we'll have a lot of
Yeah.
chances to chat tonight because no guests, and we've got records to show.
Excellent.
And Joey says, you can read that one, Scott.
Oh, hope you had a wonderful birthday, Scott. Thank you. Yeah, my birthday was this week, the 23rd.
Oh, happy birthday, Scott.
Thank
29,
you.
never being kissed.
Yeah.
Richie,
Yeah.
actually,
Is
for
it
the
Richie?
gang. Sorry, Kel, go ahead.
No, his birthday actually was when we had this event a week ago, I think. Is that right, Scott? But no one said
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's right.
was it? Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. I said happy birthday on Facebook, but
Uh,
anyway,
it's okay.
so Richard C said he just bought 3 Pete Townsend albums, Half Speed Masters from Abbey Road. And we're just, Jim, we're just discussing the Abbey Road digital, excuse me, the Miles Scholl's Half Speed Masters. But as I said in the video about these digital recordings, it's digital is on our analog future. We have to get used to it. 95% of the recordings are done by digital. Now, I'm not talking about MP3 files and recordings taken straight off a CD, which a lot of them sound like crap. I'm talking about people who have got an analog tape from a digital master and have remastered it with a lot of care, great ears, and great equipment and tube equipment like Kevin Gray or Bernie Grunman. And so, for example, the Two Against Nature, the Steely Dan recording that I used on my Reagan Naya review. I listened to it, and when I first came out of the digital, forget it, I'm not having it. It's just terrible prejudice about it, and it sounded fantastic. So I started thinking, so I bought it, and the analog productions version, and it's magnificent. So then I started looking at my esoterics, whether the digital step and that, and so there's great news, and there is one picture I want to show you, if I can. So this is coming out early next month. This is the Deutsche Grammophon, the original source, done by the Emil Berliner Studios, but it's a digital recording. Bruckner 7, 8, and 9, famous recordings with the Vienna Philharmonic and Carlo Maria Giulini. Now, anybody who knows anything about Bruckner and Vienna Philharmonic and Giulini and knows this record is going to be amazing. Yet, I wonder how Emil Berliner is going to do it. I'm sure it's going to be like Kevin or Bernie, and it's going to be wonderful. But it's $220 at Amazon, and what they're not sending me any records, and I'm not going to buy it just to review it. I mean, we love our readers, we love our viewers, but Scott and I are going to talk about that in a minute about getting records and feeling some of the pressures of it's worse with equipment, but it's still, we get a little bit of pressure from record companies. So we'll talk about that. Anyway, that's for a little bit. To remove that. So let's see if we've got a couple more questions. Someone says, "Good morning, James," from Jack.
Good morning, Jack.
I think 1, 2, or 3 are digital. It was, Jim, do you remember they came in like in the early 80s and they switched to digital? EMI was the first one, Deutsche Grammophon, and they kind of screwed it up. It was kind of early digital. And then on CD, it was pretty good, but on vinyl and got screechy. So I don't know.
Well, I've got something to say about this because we've discussed this, Anthony, a few times. But, you know, the record companies seem incredibly unwilling to send you either physical product like CDs or whatever. Yet, you know, we've all got access to all these download services now. I mean, we can review anything we want to review, whether the record companies want us to review it or not. And if we want to rip it to shreds, then we can rip it to shreds.
That's right.
There's nothing the record companies can do about it. And so therefore, my personal view is that surely it's much better for them to reach out to people. I mean, they know who the people are on the platforms who are actually doing proper work, reviewing things with dignity and with you know, professionalism. And you know, rather than just sticking to this, oh, how many hits do you get on your site, you know, and all the rest of the sort of old-fashioned PR nonsense that they seem to try and rely on, which is just rubbish now, really. Why don't they reach out properly? So maybe we should give them a sort of a challenge and say, hey, you know.
That's some great points, Jim. Well, I'll tell you the thing is, I was with the Deutsche Grammophon was very interesting because it's part of a conglomerate, so it's not really Deutsche Grammophon. And Emil Berliner know that I review their stuff. Deutsche Grammophon know that I review their stuff. They used all my quotes.
Yeah.
Every, and I know how to do a kind of a nice little grab screen. So on the Hindemith, not the Hindemith box, the Steinberg box, all of them. And they've used my quotes. Not once did they say, "Hey Anthony, can we send you this record for review?" Which is absolutely fine. I don't want them on my own, but it's still. I would think it would be nice to be at least. They're taking this stuff, and what it is typical. What does David Letterman call them? Record weasels. You know, they take everything and they give nothing. What's it for moi? You know. And so when I get a record, if I purchased it or Kraft have been really wonderful with me and Anthony, what would you like? You know, and so I've requested a couple because I've wanted them and I've been happy to review them. They've been wonderful, but they haven't said, you know, we want to send you this, please review it, right? So I've been very fortunate just to pick and choose. And there's no way we do a negative review unless it's negative. So we're very lucky. Our stuff is done brilliantly, so we're very fortunate that way. But it's getting to be a little bit of a chore. The gatekeeping, the ghosting. I was talking to a major turntable manufacturer today, and we were talking about the business, and it's like, oh, you've changed. Oh my God, the business has changed. Not just the music business, but the high-end audio business. The gatekeeping, the ghosting, and then I was on Rachel's show yesterday, Rachel's Ghost. And she's the most lovely woman and accommodating. And we're talking about this stream. And there's a guy that's on there all the time, like every day, like for hours. And he asked me a question, said, because Angie mentioned something about the YouTubers at the Munich show, like it was just all YouTubers. And even though the Absolute Sound was there and Stereophile was there, there wasn't, you know, they're not that, I hate to say it, they're not that important anymore. And so he asked me, what do you think about all this? And I said, well, I really don't want to get into it. I mean, Scott and I have talked about it a lot, but what happens is that people don't want to feel irrelevant. So what happens with these people who are either professional musicians or they went to the Columbia School of Journalism, and they're great writers, and there's some kid comes and puts up a video. The 5 best turntables under $1,000 are, you know, and gets 25,000 views, you know. And the poor guy's writing a review of a turntable, which takes, you know, 100 hours work, and it gets like 50 views, right? Mm-hmm. It's not fair. But I just said, look, you know, consider the source. if you enjoy a channel, enjoy the channel. If you don't want to watch the channel, turn it off. But trusted sources are important, right? So that's good. And by the time you've had a look at a video, like if you look at Scott's, I mean, you think Scott's going to lie about records? I mean, this the loveliest person, totally professional and thoughtful. And so he has 10,000 subscribers, and we're up to 5,000 and 1 million uniques on the magazine. So people are coming back all the time. So they trust us, which is I like. What do you think, Scott, about that?
Well, there's several subjects there. As far as the records coming to you, this hasn't really happened to me too much, but I've noticed in trying to run a channel and not having unlimited income that affording all the current releases is very difficult. It's almost impossible to cover everything. And then people get mad when you get sent a promotional copy of something that you weren't transparent about it. And like you said, I think my viewers probably have gained enough trust in me that they know I'm not going to lie about a record. But I talked to Anthony about this because it was a little bit of a dilemma. I'm like, do you feel like you really need to reveal this all the time? Because this is sort of a standard in reviewing records, right?
Well, don't confuse music lovers and passionate music files with the VC.
Right.
Two different animals.
Yeah.
And they intersect. There's a Venn diagram there somewhere where people who love vinyl and love watching the vinyl channels and love watching classical music and jazz and pop and kind of have Catholic tastes, right? And love everything. But sometimes, like when they go on, and I remember there was one venerable writer in our business who has got a great reputation, and I think the world of him. But he argues all the time with these people posting in questions. You're on the gravy train, gravy train. He's yelling at him like, it's. I just said, I was talking to this fellow yesterday on Rachel's show, and I said, we're not gonna screw our reputation 30 years from me over a $40 record.
No,
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And we like getting free records. We're professionals. I mean, like I said, we like our readers, we like our viewers. But what was that record you reviewed, Scott, the Lost Recordings? How much was it?
Right. It was $260. There was no way I would be able to review that for the channel unless I reached out to the company and asked them. And thankfully, they saw my channel and they said, absolutely, we want you to review it. So
and a beautiful review, honest and artistic and classy.
Thank you.
Well, you want to be associated. As I say, one of my things in my advertising pitch is, associate the excellence of your product with ours. Like it's right. Like Groucho Marx says, I don't want to belong to I don't want to join a club that would have me as a member. It's and the VC is great for all it does and the passion. But my God, when they start screaming about records and things, and I hate to say this, and there's nothing wrong with it. And Sir Thomas Beecham, the great composer, the great conductor, said, "What was it, Jim? God save us from the gifted amateur."
Yeah.
And that's a real problem because there are professionals and there are amateurs, and amateurs are wonderful. Amateur dramatics, right? Jim's done a lot of stuff with amateur dramatics. I've conducted amateur orchestras and amateur. And it's sometimes you're the professional. As one when I was doing some teaching, there was a fantastic principal named Peter, and he said to these young teachers, "You're the adult, they're the child," because sometimes when young teachers kind of conflate their children, you're the adult, you got to make decisions. Anyway, there's
another point on that, if I may.
Yes, I'm going to just get you big there, but
okay,
go ahead.
Then there's the flip side of that. Like I did receive some records from a company I didn't ask for. They just kind of, put them in my face and said, here, would you like these? And I'm like, yeah, sure. It was Record Store Day. I don't want to mention the company, but they weren't that great. They really weren't that great. And I felt this obligation to review them because they sent me like 5 records. And there was some interest in the community in them. But I had to really walk a tightrope act to be fair and be kind as well. I definitely let everyone know that I didn't think they sounded that great, but they were presented and annotated well and so forth. So it was kind of I never heard back from them, by the way. Yeah, so it's kind of like Anthony and I were talking about this. You don't want to be under pressure either to, have to say something nice, when you don't really feel it. So.
What's interesting, when Jim and I were reviewing in London, we'd go to the London Symphony, and there'd be a place backstage where the reviewers go and have wine and cheese. And we get wine, diners, right? Now, the London Philharmonic, we had a little less money, and we get tea and bickies. Yeah, everything there. Oh, this tea. And then the Royal Philharmonic, I think we got nothing. We got a glass of Coke, I think, warm Coke. But at least they were trying. But I think it's when the internet first started, there was a fellow named Andrew. I'm trying to remember his name, and it was the cult of the amateur, about how everybody, as I said, the great thing about the internet is everybody has their say. Yes, everybody has their say, and so you have to consider the source. The problem with audiophiles and music lovers is they read, audiophiles especially, they read everything, and people watch everything. My God, I've got here. Where's it? Piccolina. Where's Piccolina? Jesus, this is from Piccolina. Hello, Anthony and panel, from Rachel's. That's right, Piccolina. I mean, just the loveliest people on Rachel's show, and they said hello and subscribe to the channel. So it's the community is wonderful, and I love that about it. I love I love our little community, the classical community, and I love when I go to Rachel's. Is the only one I go to now. She's wonderful. I love seeing. She's so entertaining, so funny,
Yeah,
and very, very kind.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody in this business. There's a lot of jealousy, and I was always so naive about it, because I'm not a jealous person. And my wife would say, "No, they're really jealous about something." And I really no, oh yeah. So,
yeah.
So, when I first came to Victoria, one of the greatest piano players in Canada, one of Canada's greatest piano concert pianists, said, "Anthony, are you really going to Victoria?" I said, "Well, it's a different time in my life now. I can, do stuff over Zoom, and I don't want to be gigging all over the world." And he said, it's like a little bailiwick. They just fight for every little bit of their playing because they don't want anything taken away. And it's a little bit like the Sony lady said about actors. They're bottomless pits of need, and that's the problem. So yes, it's a challenge. Sometimes you get pressure. I've only had one or two give me the worst thing. The best thing I ever did was the Audiophilia Star Component Award, which is, Carl's given them, I've given them. But then I started seeing people using it as a marketing tool. Oh, we got a star, from that. And that really, then very rarely, we're very pleasant. People know our professionalism, so they don't bug us too much. But once in a while, I think Carl's had a few in his career with Audiophilia, and I've had a few where there's some people exert pressure. Carl, what do you have to say about that? You muted, Carl.
Yeah, because my youngest daughter, who's about to go to school, was making a bit of noise.
On screen, there's no problem.
Yeah. Sometimes that happens. So also, I was going to say this sounds a little similar to equipment in general. Someone's very excited to send you something to review, and there's this pressure to say wonderful things. And I think in general, if something really is bad about the piece of equipment, I just say I can't do it, and send it back, right? I mean, it's rather than just write some horrible review if it's that bad. If something's not working and you can't get it to work. No matter what you do, you don't want to write about that. There may be a small glitch where you can fix that, and that's fine. You go over them maybe on the phone or something, and you get it to work. But a major problem, you don't really, I mean, I don't want to write a review about major problems. That's not going to, who's going to read? So just send it back.
We've had some companies. We've had
Yeah.
one company in particular. They couldn't get their act together. The office was terrible. They were in advertising world. They never paid their bills. Every single piece of equipment they sent us had to get sent back because it was broken. It wasn't expensive equipment, highly regarded, but it just, and the couple of pieces we got to review, and when they worked, they were great. But it's just, I mean, I got a $10,000 piece of equipment the other day with all 4 screws in the faceplate were off. How does that happen? You know, being sent to Audiophilia for review, and the faceplate is done. Or the same company, what was it, Jan? The remote control volume, and my wife, the producer from heaven, had to go in there and she fixed it and turned it around so the remote works. I mean, and it was a $20,000 preamp.
Wow.
Insane.
It's,
Anyway,
I forget, Anthony,
ahead.
you asked, I think I changed the subject slightly. You asked me something and something about else, and I didn't answer that. What was that? What did you ask me before I started drifting?
Drift away. I was told off because I don't give you and my friend Carl enough time. I'm going to make sure. No, I've not. Scott was exactly right, because I've been so. Carl, yes, we want you to talk. Go ahead.
But something about star components or something. You wanted me to say something about that?
Oh yes. Does anybody pressure you about getting a star?
I don't think so. But of course, you know, one of the things that someone might want to do is, oh, can I see your review before you send it to the publisher? No, you know, that sort of thing. We don't do that. Right?
We get that all the time. We never send a review until they really read it on the day it's published. They know it's going to be published. We can change any technical error. And in 30 years, how many technical errors we've had? Oh yeah, none, because they're incredibly well researched. And but what they want to do is they want to gatekeep, and they don't. And a lot of them, they've been burned, I guess, by reviewers who don't send stuff back, or they mistreat it. You know, we have the hit lady here, Jan. She's the shipper at Audiophilia. It goes back, and I know Carl's is the same. It goes back perfectly, and but they don't have any faith in people anymore. Like they're going to get, and of course, one bad thing on YouTube, and they think they're going to lose a crap load of business, right? So we're very careful. We research stuff, and like you say, if it's really that bad, you know, if it's really that bad, we get it sorted out. Either they send it back and send us another unit or something. But you know, it's.
I remember one time I made a comment on one of my videos that I was expressing some displeasure. I said I got several major name releases, major label releases that have been really disappointing. And I said, I don't really like to review those. I like to talk about things I'm excited about. And that person came on the comment, you need to let us know what those are, why you're disappointed with them. And I was like, no, I'm just declining to review them. I don't want
the stories we could tell you lot. Oh my God. You know, it's like being an insider. But like if you worked at IBM, for example, and you said, oh boy, and you'd say, can you tell us the stories about IBM? They'd say, no, we can't. The same with us, right? Okay, let me go through some of the questions, some of the comments. This is I already showed Piccolina the cat. I just love that name. Piccolina, let us know your name if you don't mind at some time. And welcome.
welcome.
Why don't you, Carl, why don't you read this one? You're muted, Carl.
Yeah, Annabelle came in the room. There are lots of folks talking. Annabelle, come here. You want to read this for us? There are lots of folks talking jazz on YouTube that really don't know what they're talking about, mispronouncing names, bad information, don't know the history, etc. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's true, and it's like Bertrand Russell said. You know, nothing gets done without absolute passion. And passion is amazing, and passion is a lot of it, but it's not everything. At some time, you're going to have to ask the question. I give you a little hint. Writing about equipment is easy. Read the feature set. You can write it down. Do an intro. They were founded here. Here's how I used it. This is the cables I used with it. It's wonderful. Everything is fantastic. And they'll yap, until they get to describing the music. Then it gets insanely difficult.
Yeah.
To describe music by non-professionals in words. And it's not a case of like the audiophile tenants. Oh, the sound stage was great, and the imaging was great, and and the noise floor was good. How do you describe a string quartet and the resin on the bow and how it strokes on the sound and how it interplays? That's the kind of stuff. And then use musical examples and you can get them from IMSLP and find the musical examples. But that's because they're not professional musicians. They don't read music. Why should they? Just like if I was doing one about a MacBook Pro, I could say how much I love it. I could say why I love it, but then there's certain things in there that I'm not. I leave it to professionals. So that's so if you want to, if you're not sure, if someone comes on with their vinyl and go, this sounds great. Well, of course it sounds great to them. I'm sure it does sound great, and that might be an impetus for you to buy it, and that's wonderful. But there are people out there who really, as Jack said, there are people out there who really know what they're talking about. Consider the source. And James said, Anthony, then it's time for walk in the Bouchard Gardens. It's true.
Okay.
Egos too. Yep. Egos. Here's one from. Can you read that, Scott?
Yep. Scott's reviews and videos are as good as it gets.
You're 95% correct there, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jack.
Aren't they absolutely wonderful? I was talking about Scott's videos on Rachel yesterday. Absolutely. His Piccolina's favorites. My favorites are symphonies by Shostakovich, Mahler, Beethoven, and Schubert. Wonderful. Wonderful Piccolina. And her name is Ozzy. So Jan Piccolina, her name is Ozzy. So, okay. Or gentleman. I'm not sure if it's a lady or gentleman. Jim, could you read that one?
Yeah, there is one YouTuber who reviews audiophile pressings of music, and indeed all he can say about the music is that it is fantastic. The vocabulary is rather limited. Yeah.
Well, you get to the music part. That's why, Charles Brown, who reviews for us, you've seen Charles briefly on our show. Of course, we've got the great Jim Norris there. I mean, Jim's played them, sung them, conducted them, directed them. He knows them. Basically, we know the music intimately. I mean, we're talking intimately.
Yeah.
60 years. I was talking about on a video I'm doing about orchestral music. And I said, do you remember your first classical concert, Jim?
Well, my first classical concert, it was in Liverpool. It was Tchaikovsky First Piano Concerto with a soloist called Idil Biret.
Oh, she's great, Turkish. Oh,
and she was going, and this must have been, we're talking about 50 years ago now, at least 55 years ago, probably. But I'll always remember that. Yeah.
And mine was with my first pair of long pants in Germany, and my dad took my brother and I to see the Siegerland Orchestra, which is now the Southwest Germany Orchestra or something now. And they did Wir Klatternacht by Schoenberg, very interesting, chromatic, not aleatoric piece, and simply fantastic. And when we came out, my dad said to me, Anthony, Roger, which ones did you like the best? And we went, we liked the first one, Dad. We liked the Schoenberg best. We were both very odd children. Okay. And Jack says, how about the folks that talk about jackets and artwork? Well, that's great too, right? Like Scott taught. I mean, one of the best ones that Scott did was, if you know what I'm saying, Scott, was when Analog Productions sent him the Reiner sound, and it wasn't glossy; it was a matte finish. And I thought Scott was going to cry on air. It was like, and of course Scott asked them, and they said, "No, that's what it's supposed to be." Yeah, no way. It's a mistake.
Yeah.
But Jack, it's an artwork are wonderful. And look, when Scott does this, we do the vault tonight. You'll see the ones from Scott that are going to be absolutely beautiful, you know, and so that's fine too. But you gotta, if you're talking about, you know, a record. So, for example, in my Beethoven Sixth review, the Carl Burnham, in the merrymaking, right? Then the clarinet takes over, right? And it's on every audition. Double tonguing, which is impossible on the clarinet. And some conductors, do you see the Aurora Orchestra, Jim? Do you see the tempo those idiots took it on the drums? Like, I mean, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, Alfred Prinz or Peter Schmidl, the principal clarinets of the Vienna Philharmonic at that time. Most people don't know that. Jim and I know that because we've been around a long time. And he slurs it. Right there, Carl Böhm's conducting, and and it's like I can't play it at that speed. And then I did some. So I'm thinking, oh my god! So I put it in. I showed them. I showed the two bars, so people knew what I was talking about. Highlighted, and then I did some research, and even Robert Marsalis did it with Marsalis, the great clarinetist with Cleveland, did it with Cell, and he said, "Oh no, I couldn't play it either. I slowed it." So it's not uncommon, but little things like that people like to know that you should know. And give you a little bit of a reputation. Okay, here we go. Let's see some other ones. Oh, Piccolina, you're Montrealer. Jan, we're from Montreal. That's our hometown.
Oh yes, I know that album.
Deep Purples. Didn't Ozzy? Didn't Malcolm Arnold have something to do with that?
Yeah, he conducted it, didn't he? He conducted the premiere.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, he was a very interesting guy, Malcolm Arnold. Any other fans of Malcolm Arnold's music here? Jim and I absolutely adore it. But he was I mean, the poor man, and there's some wonderful shows on YouTube about it. He's
his daughter said that when she was cleaning his house one day, he used to use his Oscar to keep the toilet door shut because there was no lock on it. So he used to wedge it shut with his Oscar that he won for, was it Bridge on the River Choir or something? I mean, he was quite an eccentric man, you know, yeah, in his own way, yeah.
Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to just talk about two new gear announcements now. One I'm going to talk briefly about, and then I'm going to hand it over to Carl. Okay, let's get to the slide. So people are always complaining all the time about not having good equipment they can buy. And I saw these. The fellow unfortunately doesn't follow through so much with email, so it's hard to get stuff. But I saw these Project Speakerbox 3. They look really cute. There's 3E and 3E carbon, but they were €300 a pair. And I thought, wow, you know, Project really take a lot of time and effort with their gear. And I thought if people were just getting into music and wanted to up their game, if they were listening with earphones or they were listening, you know, through a sonar system, that might be nice. And dare I say, if you got a decent subwoofer with those, that might help a little bit as well. So
yeah.
And the second one,
that's good.
The second one is here. Yeah, this one. Now this is for Carl. So Carl, could you talk a little bit about Mojo Audio and their DACs?
Sure. So Mojo started off making very fine power supplies. Ben Zwickel is the founder and CEO. He's a wonderful character and a brilliant engineer, and he has his own way of doing things. He's very, very opinionated about how he feels about how things should work and be built and so on. And most of the stuff he does was very much by hand. He was one of the first to take a Mac Mini years ago and convert it to a music server. He was very into digital, by the way.
Right.
And he would strip out a lot of the inside of the Mac Mini because it was very powerful, but of course the power supply was not suitable for music and so on. And then he would have an external power supply, which was wonderful. And you could combine it. And it kind of was fascinating to watch how he proceeded. And then he made his own wonderful music servers. I still have one of them. And then he was doing DACs as well. And so this is an example, I think, of how he's streamlined what he learned by using his way of doing things, which is, again, very hands-on, doing things by hand, making each. And this is where he decided that he could bring the cost down by also having things built in a manufacturing situation instead of everyone by hand. So going from like, $15,000 down to $4,000 or something, trickling down technology is what this, I believe, is about. And his really, what I think is wonderful about his DACs is he uses what I would call true R2R. Okay, instead of using, these kind of off-the-shelf chipped converters, he uses a very old, it could be 40 years old, R2R chips, which are very, very, very simple in the way they work. And they really don't have things like filtering, upsampling, none of that stuff. They don't do DSD. They don't do MQA, all that. It's just, they do up to say 24192, and they do it beautifully. Very natural sounding, musical. What can I say? I mean, it's a different sound when you hear them. They're not just about clarity. He's not big on measurements per se. He likes to listen. So I mean, I have one of his more expensive models, and I think this could be upgraded as well. But it's got some simpler features. For example, it only accepts USB from a music source, digital source.
Love USB.
As opposed to maybe on the one I have has 3 different ways that you could connect it. This is to reduce costs as well, lighter, smaller. And I believe he also is experimenting with another one of these ancient chipsets that he has for the R2R technology. So I should say that another thing that's really cool about what he does is that we all hear about R2R technology, but most of the manufacturers who use some form of R2R are actually using, they may even have a separate chips, the traditional chips sitting in there because they want to do DSD or some other things. Yeah, it's fully balanced, James. And also, the way he does this is that he doesn't put any kind of processing little computers in there, which is also almost always in the other ones that claim to be R2R. Field programmable gate arrays and things like that. None of that is in there. So anyways, that's Ben Zwickel's.
So much, Carl. Fabulous. Well,
I recommend it.
That's great. All I can say is Ben is a kind of a mad genius, funny as hell, and a brilliant designer. But like a lot of people who have a small company, the pandemic was really kind of very affecting to a lot of them. And he couldn't get parts, and he had to change topologies and things. But I remember hearing his Mystique 1, I think, and I remember putting it in the system, and Jan and I were listening, and I said, I don't know what Ben's doing, but there's something different that he's doing with digital. It was absolutely beautiful. And then this DACs keep getting better and better. And this one, I think, is all his really expensive DACs distilled into a smaller unit and a cheaper unit. And if you're looking for a DAC, he has a pretty good website. Just call him up, have a chat with him. He'll talk to you for hours about it, his systems and his topology. And they sound absolutely wonderful. There is another DAC that I've listened to that I absolutely love. It's the Aqua, the Italian one. Do you know those ones, Carl?
Oh yeah, I have heard them over the years. Yep.
Yeah,
It'll be more expensive.
Fantastic. Do you have a DAC, Scott? You're on mute, Scott.
No, I don't have any digital except that small Bluetooth streamer that I reviewed.
And it's doing pretty well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so let's go back to some questions before we get into some other stuff. And we've got lots of records to show tonight, so hang in there. And please come up and show some records. I'll put up the link in a second. So many great questions tonight. Ozzy says, musician Evelyn Glennie is a mystery to me. Jim, can you talk about Evelyn Glennie?
Well, Evelyn Glennie is, I mean, when she was a child, she was this sort of prodigy, wasn't she? Because she discovered that, like Beethoven, being profoundly deaf didn't actually stop her from being able to sort of hear music through the vibrations in her inner ear, which, was what Beethoven tried to. And she developed into a very formidable percussion player. We actually had her in Detroit, I remember, some years ago.
That's right, we did, yeah.
Interestingly enough, in the music profession, the story went round that she had an operation which recovered some of her hearing. I don't know. I've never really been able to get to the bottom of that, whether there's any truth in that or whether it was just a muso's rumor that they circulate with everybody. That if there's something happens, then a story develops about it. But I mean, she's now sort of our age and sort of retiring age, I think, as well. But I mean, she used to be this incredibly cute little Scottish girl who'd turn up, in a sort of pinafore dress and rattle through these glockenspiel and xylophone concertos, like they were sort of yesterday's. I think, to be honest, I haven't heard her since that day we were in Detroit.
I think
30 years ago.
She's still got a pretty good career. There's a guy here, Jim. Maybe you know him. He lives up in Manchester. His name is Loki Teo.
Okay.
He says, "Greetings from a sleep-bound macadamia in night tide Parapolitania." Now, he's quite an intelligent fellow. Just ask him. And he has this great vocabulary, and that's a great comment, Loki. But
Yeah.
What is Parapolitania? What is that? I'm not sure. Is that Brexit land? Loki, we never get into politics, but if you tell me you're a Brexiteer, you're gone for life. Just so you know that. Anyway, welcome, Loki. It's also like 2 a.m. for these guys. I really appreciate it.
Is there anything to do with peripatetic? Maybe he's a peripatetic music teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
Peripatetic.
That's right. That's right. I'm not sure. Loki, what do you do? Loki has this. He goes on a lot of these streams and has these great, wonderful, pithy, intelligent comments, but he never comes up. He just refuses. Let me get some. Let's see if people want to come up. There you go. So jump on. And did you see it? Let's try that again. Yeah, there it is. So by all means, jump on. Loki, jump on.
Yeah. I'd like to see him.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. and here's the man himself. Loki, it's wonderful to see you, Loki. Thanks for coming on, bud. Okay. Jack, how are you?
I'm great. It's a very interesting conversation tonight.
Well, Rachel thought it was interesting, and the people that would, but you don't want to bash anybody because people are passionate about the stuff. And you notice that we haven't bashed anybody. There are people that have been mentioned on this stream and others that just bash people, and I mean viciously bash people. And I think that's awful. And then there's other guys that go on and say, I remember one fella said that those top 10, the top 5 turntables are the best turntables, and there's stupid videos. And he came out and said it. And of course, some guy did a video bashing him for saying it, which is clickbait. So he got 10,000. It's just ridiculous. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know? It's just ridiculous. So
I used to go up with Rachel's great, but they talk about a lot of rock stuff and the Beatles, and I can't contribute a whole lot to it. So I'll pop in and say hello once in a while. But
what I love about Rachel, is that she's so kind to everyone.
Very kind.
And sometimes, she's a big trumper and she's religious, and that's fine. Certainly not my view, but that's none of my business. And what I like about her is her kindness and how she's so kind to everybody. And and so helpful. She promotes them. Anybody can come up. If people, the peanut galleries they're called, sometimes just say these horrible things. I got to tell you this one. One guy on Rachel's street, when Audiophily came on, the show ground to a screeching halt. I thought that was hilarious. He's probably right. Some guy named, I don't forget his name, but anyway, it's just so funny. But I mean, they say pretty nasty, snarky things like that all the time. Rachel's really good at doing it. We don't do that. If she says snarky things, I'm going to delete it. So, but anyway, it was very funny. The show came to a screeching halt. Okay, this is from Loki. I'm not in Manchester, and Peripolitania is an Alan Coren neologism effectively to describe the suburbs, more or less. Oh, look at.
All right, okay.
He is so fancy, that man, with his vocabulary. Loki has ordered the Bruckner box. Yeah. It's cheaper in Europe. Yeah. Well, Loki, it'd be interesting to see, I know you go on Instagram a lot and post. It'd be great to see what you think about it, because I've asked you a couple of times about some things, and I'd love to get your opinion on stuff. Absolutely valid opinion. I'm not sure if you're a musician or not, but it'd be great to hear what you think about Emil Berliner's way with the digital recordings, because I've had some wonderful stuff. So much so that I'm not even thinking about it anymore. I'm just waiting for some new stuff to come in. If it's digital, I'm not going to be biased by it, as long as it's done by a solid remastering. I mean, the Stones box that I have, it's Bob Ludwig. I mean, he's a brilliant remastering engineer, and those tapes were all over the world and totally toast. So they had to do digital DSD file.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So Loki says he can't wait to hear it. I'm looking forward to hear what you think about it. I could order it, but yeah.
Another point that we can discuss, which is interesting. We've all played as musicians in various concert halls and recording studios, and I often play a game. I try and work out which, by the acoustic of the recording, where it's been recorded. I mean, obviously, if it's a London Symphony, it could be anything from Abbey Road #1 studio to Walthamstow Town Hall or whatever. But it's a little game I sometimes play with friends and things, and certainly the older recordings that were made in the 50s and 60s, we tend to be able to guess, I would say 3 to 4 out of 5, as to what the actual location is where they were recorded. And do any of the people in the States find that? Can you immediately recognize if something was recorded in Carnegie Hall or whether it was recorded in a studio in New York in the 50s, if it's a jazz? I mean, are these acoustic footprints?
Well, Jazz, Rudy Van Gelder Studios is a famous one.
So Jack. Jack.
I mean, when it was a Van Gelder and Hackensack, you could tell when he moved to Englewood, it just got that much better.
Right.
Really?
Oh, but cool. I think that if you do that, especially in jazz, and Scott's more than qualified to chime in here. I can almost tell now who the mastering people were. In fact, I have an old Phil Woods double RCA record, and Phil didn't do that many things on RCA, did a few. And I listened to it. I said, man, this sounds amazing. I said, this is done by a really good mastering engineer. And I looked it up, and it was Bob Ludwig. And Bob, I think he did 1 or 2 things with Phil Woods, but it happened to be that. And I could tell, I didn't know it was Bob Ludwig, but I knew it was somebody that, it was a well-known guy. So, it's hard to tell from the rooms. I think, I think jazz is a little different, James, than an orchestra recording in a big hall. It's much harder to record an orchestra, I think, than we could go back to the Von Karajan DG situation where he just became an audiophile and.
Well, that's interesting, Jack. So, I mean, are you also saying, because I mean, it seems to me that the old analog recordings were easier to capture the ambience of a hall.
Look at contemporary
than the digital ones.
Contemporary records back in the 50s, and early 60s, they recorded in their warehouse.
Right.
Roy Danan and the people who were there, and Bernie Grunman was there. That was his first job, I think, in LA. It was with Contemporary. They had it down. And when they did Shelly Man at the Blackhawks, was just Kraft just reissued Volume 1, I believe. I mean, it was the first live recording that Contemporary ever did, and you wouldn't know it was live. It was done so well. It just
Very distinctive, yeah. Roy Dunan's engineering is very distinctive, I think.
Al Schmidt, famous engineer, wrote a book. Everybody should read it. There's a chapter about that thick on microphones. He used no EQ, but he knew what microphones sounded right on what instruments. He did a couple of Dan. He did Asia along with other people, and he's a legend. And he knew what microphones were. He'd get there 8 hours before the recording session just to set up the right microphones with the right instrument. And these guys, that's what made. And the same thing with the orchestral stuff. I mean, some of the microphones could have been maybe different on some things, and they would have made all of their. It's a hornet's nest of.
When they say fix it in the mix, I remember doing a recording at Chelsea Road Studios in Toronto. Really great, and the engineer had won two Grammys and 3 Junos. He was a really wonderful man. And we were recording it, and it sounded okay. I was like, oh God, is this going to go out like that? And so he said, oh, I'm going to mix it. So he mixed it, and of course it sounded fantastic. But what was amazing is one of the players, I forget who it was a long time ago, and we were doing Scheherazade, and the clarinet or something missed the entry or something. And the conductor didn't do a backup. There wasn't a second take of it. That melody in the slow movement. And I was thinking, wow, how are they going to do that? All of a sudden I hear a clarinet in perfect position on the recording. I'm thinking, talk about fixing in the mix. Say they sampled the clarinet and put it in, and you could not tell. I was like, holy mackerel, how the hell did they do that? You know? And I remember the recording with Harry Jim, the Windjammers, and he needed a guitar on a downbeat, like just a beautifully strummed acoustic guitar, and arpeggio, and he didn't have one. All of a sudden, the recording, it's there, sampled perfectly by the engineer.
Right, yeah.
Crazy. Yes.
Quick thing about, in New York, we're at Carnegie Hall and places like that. There's been renovations over the years as well, which I think make it difficult to try to, you need to consider what the time era was and then listen, I suppose, to pieces that were done during that time era. And I'm remembering, like Harry Belafonte live at Carnegie Hall has quite a unique sound, I think. But it's been renovated quite a lot since then, the halls. And so that may be an issue to throw some confusion into you if you try to do that now. Just a comment.
Well, CBS had a studio, didn't they? A lot of the Beecham American recordings were recorded actually in the CBS studio, which of course is long gone. But so presumably, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Did more American orchestras and things record in straightforward recording studios, and they edited it in the
their own halls,
the final edit, so that what you actually hear is not necessarily going to give you any pointers as to where it was recorded.
No, most of them, Chicago and Symphony Hall. I mean, they did Medina Temple and a few other things.
Yeah.
Because they were, like Carl said, they get modified. Chicago Symphony Hall was modified. They said they ruined it. Not really, but Symphony Hall in Boston, which is a great hall. And what they do is they take the seats out and they put them in the middle of the hall. But then it becomes like the Concertgebouw, the other great hall, during the pandemic when they had nobody in there. And I remember Gustavo Jimeno, the Toronto Symphony conductor, doing Mahler 1. And it was like a bathroom in there. It was terrible. No people in there. Soak you up the sound, right? So, yeah.
It's like Pittsburgh and Steinberg, those Beethoven symphonies recorded in that. Is it the...
some strange place was it?
It was some... huge whatchamacallit, synagogue, wasn't it? It was
some massive place. I mean,
like Stokowski as well. He recorded in the that synagogue in New York as well.
Who's
It's
this?
out.
Oh yeah, and Toscanini recorded in the SNL studio, the Saturday Night studio, which if you've ever been there, is tiny. Okay, there's a question here. So James says, you could tell a big difference between the old Seventh and the new. Well, that was one of the most beautiful concerts that Jim and I have ever been to.
Yeah,
Well, they
beautiful hall.
treated us like princes there. Gary Hansen, who was the director, had us back, and they just gave us the best time. And we just heard the Detroit Symphony try to play Bolero. It was not good. And then we also heard the San Francisco Symphony with Michael Tilsonovis do Symphony Fantastic.
That was a very strange hall in Toledo.
Toledo looked like a Roman Colosseum, and it was not a good performance. And then we heard the Cleveland with Doc Nani. And all you do is you drive up, and there's Severance Hall on the hill next to the art gallery. There's nothing else around. It's just beautiful. It's parks, and you go in, and you go to Severance Hall. There's pictures of all the principals on the wall. And you go in the hall, this gorgeous hall, and Doc Nani came in, oboe tuned, and they did Bruckner 5. And Jim and I just kept looking at each other going, oh my God. And that's a question I've got for you guys sometimes. And I'm actually going to talk about it in a video. What makes the Big Four, I won't call the Big Five because New York's not in it. What makes the Big Four and the Concertgebouw and LSO and Chicago and Vienna, what makes them continually in Dresden, Leipzig, have the best orchestras over the years? So I put on, this is great, Dallas Symphony. Very good, great hall, Meyerhoff. A lot of money, good conductor, Fabio Luisi. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was that Russian, that Polish guy that got kicked out of Indianapolis for ageism, Urbanski. Anyway, they're doing Shostakovich 10. It was completely average. I'm thinking they got fine players. They had a great concertmaster, ex-concertmaster from fine players, very good principal flute, but it was okay. And yet you put the Yellowstone one or the Berlin Phil, and it's mesmerizing. And there's a phrase, you play to 12, 14, 16, and the string players in England would tell me that. What the hell does that mean? That means the violins have the great players, and they go to number 12 out of the 16 or 18. Well, the Concertgebouw played to number 18, trust me. So when you hear those string players, I saw the search out Concertgebouw. What's that? Borodin Symphony number 2. And every string player, the same height, the same bow stroke, the same bounce, the same tone, and it was just mesmerizing. You're looking at them going, and sometimes I call Jan over to the Berlin Phil one. I go, look at the string section, and that's the difference. Every single one of them. And we have our guest next week, principal flute of the LSO, Gareth Davis, and sometimes they have 5-10 years before they replace the player. So it's not just can you play the notes. Most people can play the notes. Is your rhythm good? Gareth will tell you about auditions. How many people show up and they don't play the right rhythm? You know,
it doesn't. Certain orchestras do certain things better than certain composers, certain kinds of music better than others. So maybe could it be that maybe you caught Dallas on a night they were playing something they weren't?
Could be. Well, it was certainly very professional.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right, Jack. And one of the things I'm talking about in this video is the variables, the financing, the hall, the conductor, the board. There's a million variables. And what happens is when there's a position, do you know what that is, Jack? Let me just go full for a second. Do you know what that is, Jack?
Well, it's a gentleman holding a bassoon.
It's the union paper.
Boy, has it changed.
The union paper. So here are all the gigs in the back, and there's the Cleveland Orchestra. So the Cleveland Orchestra will pay a lot of money, $150,000, $180,000. The New Jersey Symphony offering string fellowships because it's going to be a lot less. The Virginia Symphony pays per service. It works out like $50,000 a year. I mean, it's just done a lot. The Spokane Symphony was paying $24,000 for the principal flute of that orchestra, $24,000. So you know, so you have the Vancouver Symphony won't be badly paid. St. Louis will be well paid, but most of them, so they go to these orchestras because of the money. So the Met pays huge dough because it's in New York. So Boston Symphony, I just figured out their endowment. Jim, you know how much their endowment is? The BSO, $500 million.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the LSO or the CBSO having an endowment like that? Chicago's about 300 million. So yeah, I think endowments, the board, the history of the orchestra, the tone, like the Vienna Phil and Berlin Phil are both the greatest orchestras, but they have different sounds for different things. So anyway, I got a video coming up. You might be interested. Okay, I've got a couple of news things to show you. Then we're going to go to the vault. This has been a great discussion tonight, by the way, guys. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so I've got a couple of things to show you. There's this one. This is the second one we were talking about last week. This is Triptych's the Schumann collection from Nicholas Van Pucker. It's it's wonderful on vinyl, and the gentleman we had, Brendan, last week, was happy that a lot of vinyl has been ordered from our viewers. And there's the Schumann collection, Volume 2. Doing Davis Bunderlanze, very beautifully played. So there's that. But I also want to talk about this one, and I'm going to get it up here in a second. So where is it here? This one. Okay. That's another Triptych album. It's not. I don't have it yet. That's why I'm showing it. This is The People United Will Never Be Defeated, and it's a piece by Frederick Rzewski. That's how you pronounce it. American composer, Polish descent. Has anybody ever heard of Frederick Rzewski?
No.
Anybody in the macadamia gallery? Very interesting. Very Russian, Polish American. Taught at Harvard, I think, and Stanford. So when he died about 83 years old, about 2 years ago. There was an outcry on Twitter. Oh my God, Frederick Rzewski's died. You should all. And who's that Russian German? Igor Levin recorded it, this piece, and got a lot of press. And it's kind of like it's a Chilean communist song. It's an earworm. The song is amazing, called "The People United Will Never Be Defeated." Then there's a whole set of variations. Sounds like Beethoven, Brahms, Bill Evans. It's an unbelievable piece of music. It's fantastic. It's not squeaky gate music. I recommend you all get it. It's wonderful. But on Twitter, everyone was telling all the reviews on there, you got to review Frederick Rzewski. He's the greatest. Okay, fine. So I did. We got 150 views on Audiophilia. That's it. I mean, the views that Audiophilia reviews get thousands and thousands and thousands of views. He got 150 views for like 6 months. I was like, what? Because nobody cares about modern music, and they say they do, and it's fancy. It's fancy on the internet. Say, oh yes, it's great. But then when push comes to shove, nothing. Crickets. But anyway, stream that just to make sure you like it. But Frederick Rzewski has a couple of his own recordings. He's a fantastic pianist. I forget the recording I have. She's a wonderful lady. He wrote it for her. And this lady's supposed to be, Brendan was saying she's amazing. So just an idea. Okay. So let's get to the vault. We have 20 minutes. I'm going to get to my friend Scott.
Okay.
We might get to Bar Talk tonight again.
Okay, I'll hold off on that.
No, we started this great conversation. Then Carl hogged the conversation on that DAC. You know that?
All right, so we'll skip the bar talk. But I have been going through my vault to get stuff in label order. You know, the order of the label and everything. And I came across these. I don't think I've shown them before. This is London Mono.
Ricci, yeah.
Anthony Collins is the conductor. London Symphony Orchestra.
Well, Anthony Collins was
Sibelius.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Collins was I think he was the ex-principal viola of the London Symphony Orchestra in the 40s and 50s. So a very experienced orchestral player and conductor.
Yeah, it's a nice record. This is Answer May. I don't think I've shown this one before either.
Wow. Is that mono?
Ah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah,
These are amazing records, Scott.
yeah.
Wonderful.
I was very lucky to find all these.
How much was that?
50 cents. All of these were like 50 cents. Then I pulled out a whole row of my Victrolas. So if you guys don't know out there, the Victrola line was a budget line for RCA Living Stereo and mono, but you can find some great deals on some of those records that are very unaffordable, and they're pressed quite well too. A few years later. So this is a Berlioz, this Enfance de Christ. It's an oratorio. I'm starting the later numbers here.
Oh wow! Oh yeah.
Okay.
Beethoven. This is when their covers were kind of not so pretty, but this one's a pretty rare one.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Anthony and I discussed this one earlier. This was on the TAS Super Disc list. It's one of the few Reiners that was on Victrola only. Overtures and Dances. I have the class. That's the classic.
This is the classic.
Yeah.
Classic record issue, but this is a very interesting record. It was put on Victrola because it was kind of a bunch of hodgepodge of repertoire that Reiner recorded, but they didn't put on any specific record, so they didn't release it on an LC. They just said, okay, put it on the Victrola, and
I think the I forget which track was on the TAS list. It was one particular track. But,
it's a very good record. I mean, it's just the performances aren't quite as good as his regular Shaded Dogs.
Yeah, that was during the Pink label era. This is the reissue of course, the famous Boston Symphony recording, Bolero and Laval's. But yeah, that's really nice. And this is the famous reissue of the very first Living Stereo recording, Reiner, Chicago, Strauss.
Wow.
A great way to get that cheap. This one is, I don't know if you can see this, kind of small type. Sorry, I'm not, okay, there we go. No.
There we go. That's it, bud. Yeah.
That's it better?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. That's Ravel and Strauss works. This one's a famous one, and it's a...
That I have the classic record issue. That is the one where I played the opening for John Stratton when he bought his Harmony turntable, the one that's behind me. And I said, "Oh my God, listen to that rumble!" He nearly fainted.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, but it's not. It's the Kingsway rumble. It's very clear record.
I really like the aesthetic of their covers during this time. This was a Popular Classics, Morton Gould.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've told about him. Great conductor and a great composer. Very underrated.
And this is
oh, look at that. That's rare.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
I think Monteur does, eh? He did the LSO when he was like 80 years old. And it's just amazing.
This was reissued by Classic. It's a famous one. I think actually I have the Analog Productions one of this too. It's kind of lightweight kind of music, but this is Armin's record, Armin Khachaturian. His dad made this record.
His dad.
This handsome dad runs in the family.
Gotta be. Well, that's
I don't
interesting.
know.
I heard that. I've heard his third, not the second. How's that?
All right.
I bet
Great.
that's
Very good. Actually,
great covers. Great covers.
yeah, they're really nice. They're textured covers with always with a nice little painting or drawing. Actually, that one. I don't know much about this conductor. Do you know much about him?
Yeah, Hugo Rignold. He was again was once been a conductor. He'd been a band leader in the 1920s and 30s, and conducted a lot of light music. He was principal conductor of the Liverpool Philharmonic in the late 40s for about 4 years. He didn't make a huge number of recordings, but amongst orchestra.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. I mean, he's well known in the UK as a historical conductor. Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen him on the record of the Paris Conservatoire. I've seen him on British orchestras, but that's very interesting. Yeah.
This is a sleeper. This is excellent sounding.
Right.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
I think it came out on a Shaded Dog as well.
Can I just show you one, guys, that I want you to, whatever you do not buy it. I
Buy
just
what?
wrote that Instagram.
Oh.
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is because, Scott, you mentioned Hugo Rignold. This is Raymond Agot, same kind of deal, band music. A light thing. This is called Overture. LSO. Wilkinson did the mono. This is the stereo. Cyril Weinbank did the stereo. LSO 1955, so pretty good still. Symphony, Kingsway Hall. It's absolutely a dog. I've never heard the original. It may be better. It's a very rare misstep. When Steve Hoffman's on, he starts talking about some of those bright classic records. This is one of them. It's almost unlistenable. The music's pretty crap. It's like Cavalry Zampa. Adam, If I Were King.
Yeah.
Morning, noon, night. It's the Russian bandmaster. It's okay, but the recording is terrible. So stay clear. If you see this for $2, oh, it's an analog productions. It's absolute nonsense.
What is the catalog number on that?
This is LSC 2134.
Okay, I'm gonna pull out I have an original in a
I'd
different.
love you to hear the original. Let me know. Hang on, there we go, bud.
Yeah. So just a couple more here. This one is Boston Symphony, actually. An unusual one. I think this was only available on this Victrola label. And finally, last but not least, is the famous Harman Fowler.
Oh, that's that's the record.
Yeah, and this is excellent. It sounds excellent too. So that's a little sampling of Victrola. What was the catalog number again? I'll pull that while you guys are talking.
Maybe I want to show off my records. I want you to look at them. I'm just kidding. 21. It's record envy. 2134. LSC 21.
Okay.
Jim, did you have some records?
Yeah, I've got a few. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Jack, did you get some records, or I remember you said you were thinking of getting some records?
I got one sleeper that was a.
Okay, we're gonna do Jim and then you. Okay, Jim.
Right. The first one is Clifford Curzon, Mozart piano concertos, Cortez, Decca. It's an original Decca.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a nice
original deck. Is that stereo?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
that's lovely.
Yeah, it's an original one. And then actually I'll push my chair back a bit. And then this is an interesting one. This is Beecham doing Berlioz's Harold in Italy with William Primrose and the Royal Philharmonic. And it's on record label is what? Odyssey Records. I don't know. I've never heard of Odyssey Records, but
oh, that's great.
It's a great recording. This is a wonderful box set. One of the very last EMI LP box sets, Shally Arpin. It's virtually brand new. I actually got sent this years and years ago by EMI, and it's a wonderful sort of classic, when EMI used to do these great singers boxes, HMV Treasury boxes. And I've got Arthur Rubinstein. This is RCA Red Seal. Rubinstein, Rachmaninoff 2, Eugene Normandy.
Are these all from the charity shops?
Yeah, this one is. The Shally Arpin wasn't.
Where do you get the Curzon from?
Charity shop.
How much?
Oh, 99 cents.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I know. And this is another one, virtually brand new, 99 cents. Mozart clarinet, bassoon, Brymer, Gwydion Brook.
Best Mozart clarinet concerto on record. Unbelievable.
You know, and again, nice. It's a nice pressing as well.
That's fantastic.
Well, in fact, it's one of those. We were talking about this last week, weren't we? It's one of these sort of purpley ones.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what year that makes them, but I think that's the only purple EMI I've actually got. And then just another. Oh yeah.
But the Odyssey, by the way, Jeremy says
Delia Seadrift with Charlie Groves, John Noble, Royal Liverpool Philharmonic, Liverpool Philharmonic Chorus. This is one of the first. It's a great Delius. Charlie Groves did Delius really well, and again, it's a classic. It's the classic. Yeah.
Oh, postage stamp. Jim, Jeremy said that Odyssey was the former budget label of Columbia Records, and
okay.
Say Odyssey was Columbia's second label.
So I mean, yeah.
Okay, Jack, you're up. Show us your record, your sleeper.
Yeah. So this was I paid $2.99 for this. I don't know if anybody knows this. It's
famous.
Oh yeah.
What a great sounding record. I mean, it was London, so I mean it's good. But boy, I'll tell you, I've heard this piece so many times I don't listen to it much anymore. But the sound on this is incredible, and it's so clean. I did clean it, so it's
look at that.
What's interesting about this, I love when this happens. I don't know if you can see this. It sold for 99 cents at one point somewhere. I think I paid $2.99 or $3.99 for it, but it's kind of cool to have the old price there. What a great sounding record! I mean, it's almost an audiophile record.
It is.
Well, it is. Scott, can you tell us a little bit more about those STS and the orange labels?
Well, the STS was Stereo Treasury series. It was their London's budget label. They were pressed in the UK. Pretty much a few years after the major, series went by, the full price series. And although the covers are a little, drab, the records aren't. Many times they are equal to the bluebacks and sometimes surpass them, especially the later pressings, I think.
I was just blown away by the sound. I never thought it would sound as good. I mean, it sounds if you didn't know, you would say this is one of London's best recordings. Yeah, that
particular one always stood out among the Stereo Treasury grouping. It was always commanded a higher price because it did sound so good.
That's why it was $2.99 instead of
No, but back in the day, that used to go for like $30 on the used market. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up to 1 hour and 30 minutes. Before we go, I just want to remind you of a couple of things. I should tell you that we have our giveaway through the auspices of Angie and Jack, with the great gifts. So thank you so much. Go to Instagram, enter me your favorite classical record, Instagram /audiophile. That's all you have to do. Then I jump through hoops, and the draw will be coming up soon. We're only about 100 off 5,000. So, boy, the last couple of weeks has been exponential. So thanks again, Jack, for that. And Jack, I'm not sure if Angie's watching tonight. But love you, Ange. Thanks so much for your kindness. The Rega Planer 3 with an exact cartridge. And most importantly, 6 records from Angie's collection.
Mm.
We could definitely choose 6 from that collection. And so upcoming ECML, that stands for Everything Classical Music Livestream. I guess every 2 weeks. And next week, I am so pleased to tell you that Gareth confirmed yesterday. He's very busy. They're always on tour and all sorts of things. Gareth Davis is principal flute of the London Symphony Orchestra. Try and stream his before next week. Try and stream his famous Nielsen flute concerto. He did it when he got the Borland Symphony when he was 22 years old, and then he recorded it. And do you know who did the clarinet concerto on the other side, Jim? Do you know who did it? The Nielsen clarinet concerto. Kevin Banks, a friend of Jim's and mine from Trinity.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll be able to talk about that. Gareth probably
Ah.
with Kevin for several years. So Gareth is has recorded it. I don't think he's recorded at Kingsway. Please ask him. So guys, don't just leave it to me. I mean, I'm the flute player and stuff, but have some questions. LSO recording. With all our guests, I never ever want to put them in a position to be uncomfortable. Like how come this conductor does this, or how come this, So just be kind, be fair, just regular stuff. But just be aware of musicians aren't the bravest when they're talking about conductors. They're just not, because they've got to work.
Well, unless they're dead.
Yeah, like Jim's comments about Ant Alterati falling asleep during his Beethoven night.
Yeah.
There's no problem. Now that's interesting, because Gareth and the LSO, they own the orchestra. One of the famous things about Dorati was he's up there and started yelling and screaming, and they said, "This is our orchestra. Get the hell off the stage," and he had to leave. And then the board member had to bring him back on and stroke, and everything's fine. But that was at the end of that kind of life, where these conductors kind of ruled the roost. Anyway, so Gareth's coming on. It's a perfect opportunity for you to see one of the world's great flute players, and Gareth's going to be on as well. Anyway, so Steve, I thought I'd get at least a snarky comment from Jim. I'm working on Steve. These are all confirmed. Steve Hoffman's confirmed, just not sure when. I'm working for Steve for the we do it every 2 weeks, and then Tom Bowes, a great friend and an incredible violinist, played everywhere, all the concert masters and string quartets for films. I know he did Interstellar. He's good friends with who's the guy that did Interstellar? Famous did Gladiator. Oh, what's his name?
Horner?
It's with Zim. No, Zim.
Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer.
And then, of course, Jerome, Abbey, John DeVore, incredible mind of superior loudspeakers. John's really got the best aesthetic in high-end audio. And Dr. Mike Berry, who's a friend of mine on Facebook and a wonderful man. And that'll be great. So here we are, 128.38, coming up to the end. So Macadamia Gallery, Caprino Gallery, thank you so much for your questions tonight and your kindness to one another and your welcoming to everybody. I know there was a few people that came on for the first time, that Piccolina and a few others, and it was wonderful. And we got some comments as usual. When do you read that one, Scott?
Great show. Can't wait until next Wednesday. Have a wonderful one, everyone. Joey.
Yeah.
And then Carl, that one?
Good show. Time for toasting. Or a toast.
Yeah, somebody's going to request a toaster by the time we're going to have to do this, I think.
The toaster. Well, when we do the Messiah story, Jim, when we do the Matthias, yeah, I'll do it at 10,000. We're way off. Richard says that does not stop Mazel, who left the orchestra in the middle of a concert because he did not want to see the first bassoonist anymore. Yeah, Mazel was an interesting cat. I told the story about Sidney Sutcliffe, the oboe player, what he told the 15-year-old Mazel to do. And here's Piccolina. I Postal Playboy and then Cranberry Sauce are my favorite names, but Piccolina the cat, that's up there.
Yeah.
That's up there. I mean, we love all the names equally, full transparency, but some of the names are just Postal Playboy. Anyway, so thank you so much for our wonderful commentators tonight. And most importantly, to our great friend Jack. Every week we love seeing you and what you're up to. And that great record, you trumped us all. That record that's a keeper. And when you cleaned it, it was like just pristine. Fantastic. And how much was that?
I think, Anthony, at 10,000 subscribers, I think someone ought to get a 10 minutes to pick through Scott's garage.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm trying to figure out a way to give that stuff away. So
Party at Scott's place.
garage sale episodes.
Anyway, thank you to, of course, everybody for tonight, but especially to Scott, my incredible co-host, and Carl. And thanks, Carl, for your great insight about the digital, as always. And Jim, your 99-cent fines, especially that Curzon, I want badly. That's worth. If you clean that and it's in good condition, good nick, that would be worth. That's probably a $50-$60 record. And how much is it? Or more. Curzon is
well,
big.
it was 99p, and yeah.
Anyways, hang out for a second while I just log off here. Everybody have a great week, and we can't wait to see you next week. All the best, and thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes.